So let's get right. Okay, everyone, let's get right into our class for today. Also, we continue our question practice session on focus primarily on past question papers. And some of the, so that helps us understand how these questions are tested and what's required ahead of the exams. In our previous class, we discussed decision tree and we practiced the question using the pilot question set 1, SFM pilot question set 1, question 2. So ICAN has 2 of these pilot exam questions. So they have pilot set 1 and then they have pilot set 2 for the SFM exam, especially because it's a new syllabus. All right, so we're looking at the pilot set 2 decision tree. And so in our previous class, we began by drawing, which is what the question requires, that we show the fully annotated decision tree. So we did draw that out in our previous class, and this is what we have right here. So any question from the decision tree? So maybe you were in class, and maybe when you look at it again, if you needed to clarify something, possibly you were not in class, but you did watch the video, and then maybe while watching the video, you just noticed something you needed some clarity on. Do we have any question on the actual drawing of the decision tree? Any question? Okay, guys, so if we're good with that, let's go ahead and interpret our decision tree. So this is what we're going to do. Now, we did mention that when you draw a decision tree, you're going to have 2 symbols. The first symbol is this symbol, which would be the different point that you have to make a decision. So you have to decide, should I do this? Should I do that? So when you make a decision, the possible outcome of those decisions are depicted with a circle. So you could see that when you have a square here, it means that we needed to make a decision whether to go with the money market or whether to invest the money in RFL. Now, if we do invest the money in RFL, there are 2 possible outcomes. The possible outcome would be that we might have 160 million with a 60% chance of occurrence, or we might have 200 million with a 40% chance of occurrence. We would always make use of the present value, because for our strategic financial managers, we always want to know what is the present value of an item. So that would be the first outcome for year 1. Now, at the end of year 1, you can make a decision, and that's why you have a square here, because it's a decision here. You can decide to terminate or abandon the project and receive 282 million, present value 239. Or you can choose to continue the project. And if you choose to continue, these are the outcome. And that's why we designated it in circle here. The outcome, you might have a 160 million, you might have 180 million. And then then if you did not collect this 282 in year 1, you end up collecting 162 in year 2 if you choose to continue. So the same thing with all of this one. So wherever you have a square, it's a decision point. Whenever you have a rectangle, rather, it's a decision point. And whenever you have a circle, it is the outcome of your decision. So let's begin now by interpreting our result. Now, so when it's a decision point, it means that you have to choose. So a decision point means you have to choose. So whenever you have to make a decision, it means you have to choose. Okay. And then whenever you have an outcome, you just have to calculate the value of that outcome. So we're going to begin from right to left, like we explained in our previous class. So we can do this line, this, then we can do this, and then we come to E. So we can do A and C because these are all on the same area. These are all on this line. Then we can then do B and D because these are all on the same line, and then we come to E. when we are done with that. So let's begin with A. Let's begin with A. This is this point. And A is on the outcome. A is on the outcome. So let's evaluate the possible outcome then. So let's do a calculation then for A. So let's do our calculation. So we're beginning with A, which is an outcome, because we designated it in circle. So that was designated in a circle, per our calculation is an outcome. So let's go back to our chart and see what value we get from A. So for A, we would get 115 million present value, and then we will get 116, which is the option we get if we don't collect the 282 at the end of year 1. So that means that for A, we have 115 plus 116. So A, we have 115 plus 116. Now, what is the probability along that line? The probability along this line is 60%. So we multiply that by 60%, which is 0.6, plus the decision point. So along A, we might have this, or we might have this. So we've done this. So let's add what this to determine the expected value from our decision, and the expected outcome from the decision we made to continue. So we might have 129 present value, or we might have 116 present value here. So 129 plus 116, the second line. 129 plus 116. What is the probability on that line? What is the probability on that line? The probability on this line is 40% right here. The probability on this line was 60%. The probability on this line is 40%. So multiplied by 40%, which is 0.4. Okay. So what do we have as our value for point A? So our value for point A, that's 115 plus 116 multiplied by 0.6 gives me 138.6 plus 129 plus 114 multiplied by 0.4 gives me 98. Okay, so that total 138.6 plus 98. So that gives us a total of 237. So this point A, our expected value is 237. So, which is total here of 237. So let me write that to be a little bit legible. Okay, so this is 237. All right, so let's do C, and then we can then come back and do B and D, and then we can continue. So look at C. What is C? It is a decision point, and that is why it is in square. It's a decision point. And what it basically means is that we need to make a decision. And we have two decisions to make, or one option out of it, two to make. We can decide to terminate the contract, or we can decide to continue. If we continue, the value on this line is 237, which we just calculated. The present value, that's what we're using. But if we terminate the contract, the present value is 239. Between 237 and 239, which is a better decision, which profits us more? Clearly, it is 239. So that therefore means that at this point, our value is 239. 239. That is comparing this versus this. So I can just put that down. So point C is a decision point. So we need to make a decision. And what are the decisions? Do we terminate? And if we terminate, the value is 239 versus do we continue, which is point A. And if we continue, the value is 237. So clearly, the preferred option for C is on that line is to terminate. And because we have 239 at the higher value. Okay, that's the point A and C. Now let's go down a little bit and do point B and D so that we all meet, because this point D they will all move on to E. This will all move on to E. So let's move on to point B. Point B is an outcome point. So we're not choosing. It's an outcome point. We're not choosing. So we're just going to calculate the expected value. We're not choosing. We only choose make a decision point. That is where we make a decision. So point B is in circle, is an output point. So we'll look at what's the value for this plus what's the value for this. What's the value for this line? 114 plus 162. Sorry, not 162. The PV, 116. 144 plus 116, which is the present value. So our point B is a decision point. Okay, so the first line under B, there are two lines that goes out of B. This is the first line. So this first line, we have 144 and 116. Those are the two values on that line. 144 and 116. Okay, someone speaking to me? Yeah, you just raise your hand so I will call you. So I can know who is speaking and I can call on the person well. But you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
The B, is it outcome? Is it not outcome? I think I'm seeing it in outcome, sir.
Yeah, it's outcome. Yes, it is outcome. Yes, it's outcome. So we're trying to find the expected value of that outcome.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So, so you could see that C was a decision point. So we had to decide between the two lines. That's what we had to decide between. So let me go back that. Let me go back to it quickly. So C is a decision point. So we have to make a decision between all of the lines. Do we terminate? Do we continue? If there was a third one, we have to make a decision between them. And that's why we had to choose between this and this. And we went for this because this was higher. A is an outcome point because it's in circle, which we discussed when we're mapping it. Because it's in circle, all we need to do is to calculate the expected value. And how do we calculate the expected value? Just get add the values, multiply by the probability, add the values, multiply by the probability, and sum up everything. Is that clear?
Very clear. Very clear.
Right,
I think I'm talking about the B. The B is what I'm talking about.
So the same thing would be B is an outcome point. It's a circle, is an outcome point. So we find the value here, multiply by the probability. We find the value here, multiply by the probability, and then add it up because it is an outcome point. It is not a decision point. If it's a decision point, it means we have to choose between these and this, but it is not a decision point, it's an outcome point. So we need to evaluate the expected value. Is that clear?
Very clear, sir. Very clear.
All right. All right. So let's go right back. So it's a decision, it's an outcome point. So we have 200, present value, what is the present value? 144 plus 116. The probability is 60%. So 144 plus 116, the probability is 60%, which is 0.6. Plus, because it's an outcome point, we add all all the values multiplied by expected values, by the probability rather. The second line under B is 158, which is the present value, and 116. We're not using the cash value because in SFM we prefer to use the present value because we want to know what it's worth based on the time value of money. So that is 158 plus 116. The probability is 40%. So that's 158 plus 116. The probability is 40%. Okay. What do we have right there? So that's the first one, 144 plus 116 multiplied by 0.6, which is 60%, gives us 156. The second one, 158 plus 116 multiplied by 0.4 gives us 109.6. Okay, so what do you have as a total? 109.6 plus 156. So approximately rounded up to 266. That's what we have here. 266, which is this point. So it's my okay. So that's this point, 266. So if we continue, we have 266. D is a decision point, meaning we have to make a decision. So we have to make a decision between all of the lines that go out of D. And there are two lines that go out of D. The first line is that we abandon. We have 239. The second one is that we continue. We have 266. So which one favors us more? So D is a decision point. So we need to make a decision. So if we continue, we get 266. If we abandon, we get 239. So which is better? Continue under that line because 266 is higher. Continue. Okay, so that means that right here, our decision is 266. Okay, guys. So we've solved up to point C and D. On that point C, it is 239. On that point D, it is 266. Any question up to that point? We're solving from right to left. That's decision tree for you. We begin from the end part and then solve it to the beginning. Ibukun, please go ahead.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. For the B part, sorry, can you scroll down?
The B part, okay, I'll just scroll down. Okay, yeah, so let me scroll down.
We are writing
the calculation. Okay, yeah, I'm right at the B part. Yeah.
So the B part, I was thinking in the bracket, it should not be an outcome, not a decision point. Sorry.
Sorry, I wrote that. Yep, that's an error at my part. That's an error on my part. It's an outcome point. That's why I did. That's why we're evaluating it. So just like A is an, okay, I guess that was what the other guy was trying to point out, which I missed. Oh, I get it now. It's an outcome point. Thank you. Very true. Very true. Thanks for that. I missed that. Thanks. Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Ibukun. All right. So we found ourselves at point C, which is 239, and point D, which is 266. Are we all together at those different points? Okay, so if we're all together, let's move on to point E. Point E is an outcome point because it's a circle. So it's an outcome point. And because it's a circle, it's an outcome point, we're not choosing between these two options, but rather we're calculating the expected value. So we're going to find what is the value on this line plus what is the value on this line. So what is the value on this line multiplied by the probability? What is the value on this line multiplied by the probability? Because it is an outcome point. So let's begin with the top line. So on this line, we have 136. We're using at the present value. We have 136. And then we have 239, which is what we've solved up to this point. So 136 plus 239. So E would be our outcome point. Okay. So that is what's the value again? Okay, 136, 239. (136) plus 239. What is the probability on that line? On that upper line, what is the probability? The probability on this upper line is 0.6. Multiplied by 0.6. Plus, let's look at the line below it. Okay, so this is the line below it. So we have 169 and then 266 that we have solved up to that we brought down up to this point. So 169 plus 266. The probability is 40% of 0.4. 169, 266. Plus 169 plus 266. The probability is 40%, which is 0.4. Okay, so what do we have? So we'd have 136 plus 239 multiplied by 0.6. So that's 255. Plus 169 plus 266 multiplied by 0.4 gives us 174. So that's 174 plus 255. Okay, let me calculate that again because that's 0.6. 136 plus 239 multiplied by 0.6, 225 rather, not 255. So 255 plus 174. Let me do the second one again. I think there's an error there. 169 plus 266 multiplied by 0.4. Okay, let's look at the values again. I think I must have missed out something from the values. Or did I do it twice? Okay, so 169 plus 266. Okay, so let's do that again, multiply by 0.4. 169 plus 266 multiplied by 0.4, that gives us 174. 174 plus 225 gives us 339. So I guess I was pressing the wrong values on my calculator. So it gives us 239 as our net benefit under that line. So our E is 399. Okay, so our E right here is 399. So let's move back now to our final point, which is our decision point. Do we invest in money market or do we invest in RFL? If we invest in the money market, this is our point F now. We need to make a decision. Do we do money market or RFL, which is what the question is all about. If we invest in the money market, we explained last week that it is an efficient market. And whenever you have an efficient market, the NPV would be 0. So under point F, if we invest in the money market, so our F is the decision point. If we invest in the money market, our NPV will be equals to 0. Now, if we invest in RFL, what would be our NPV? If we invest in RFL, which is this line, at point E, our net benefit is 399. So that's our value at point E, 399. However, how much are we going to spend? How much investment do we need to put into the business? Our initial capital outlay is 402. So what would be the NPV? Your inflow is 399. Your capital investment would be 402. So let's do that quickly. 399 minus 402. So our inflow at point E will be 399. Our capital investment would be 402. So you have an NPV of -3. So guys, this is the decision. Do we invest in money market or do we invest in RFL? Clearly, we shouldn't invest in RFL because it's a negative NPV. So between the two, that is our recommendation. Between the two options, the money market is preferred. The money market is preferred as RFL returns a negative NPV of 3 or -3, negative NPV of -3. So we can just put that somewhere here. What's our NPV on this line? NPV is equals to -3. So we say, let us go with the money market. Any question, guys, on decision tree? Even if it's not on this question, just maybe if you have any question on decision tree generally, we can take it. Any question? Okay, so let's do like a 2-minute recap. In every decision tree, you're going to map it from left to right. So we begin from the beginning and then we map it forward. You are going to make use of 2 symbols, and those symbols are very important because if you miss out the symbols, when you are evaluating your answer, you might get it wrong. So you're going to pay attention to the symbols and make use of the right symbols. And what are these symbols? The rectangle symbol would be the decision point. So whenever you have to make a decision, you make use of the rectangle symbol. The outcome symbol would be a circle symbol. And that would be used to depict the outcome of whatever decision you've made. When you are evaluating your map, you move from right to left. if you have the outcome, which is the circle, all you need to do is to look at each of the lines, multiply by the probability, and add up everything. Gives you the expected outcome. However, if you have a decision point, it means that you have to make a decision between all of the different lines that is attached to that decision point. And that's why our use of the right map, the right symbol is very, very important, guys. It's very important. Okay, so with that said, I'd like to move on to our next question, which is our pilot question 1, set 2, which is on APV. So just give me a sec, just to move right to that.